Thanks for listening to our podcast, Living Life with the Rogers. My name is Cameron.
And I'm Kira, and this is a lifestyle podcast where we talk about hashtag all the things. Listen in.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Living Life with the Rogers. We are into season 2. Isn't that exciting, Kira?
Super exciting. I didn't even know that we had a season 1.
So this is an update for Kira and all our listeners. We are starting season 2, and we're starting it off with a good one, folks.
Well, I don't understand. Do you just decide 10 episodes and that's a season?
It's an even number kind of thing, so I feel like we have to kind of break it off. Plus,
but why not 8 or 12?
Because that's too many. It's like people don't want to stick around that long. That's too many episodes. Everybody's like, this is dragging on at this point.
Okay, season 2, woo!
So we're going to start with a very light topic. Anxiety is our topic today. So you see what I did there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of messing with people today. So we want to talk about anxiety. We both have some little bit of personal stories there, and it's a topic that's near and dear to our heart. So that's what we're going to discuss today. I want to start off with it's not legit unless we start off with a definition of anxiety. So it's a feeling of worry, nervousness, unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. So what's crazy is anxiety is big in church culture, in Christianity, and in everybody nowadays, it seems like, especially since post-2020. So this should be something that a lot of people can relate with.
Yeah, I feel like even kids today are struggling with the anxiety. I think back in the day they had anxiety, but they just didn't call it anxiety, and they didn't know what to do with it. So it was just a suppress it kind of thing. But nowadays it's like a hot topic. I feel like the word anxiety comes up a lot in conversation on social, in the doctor's office. So it's definitely something that is out there, and we're going to talk about it today.
And I'm glad we're talking about it, because I remember growing up as a kid, and I memorized a verse. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, make your requests known to God. And so
didn't that just fix you?
And it and it healed me. And that was the thing, is I remember growing up with that verse and being like, oh, I'm a bad Christian. I must not really trust in God. I mean, there was a lot of doubts that I had, and that verse, I believe the power of the word of God is powerful, but I also believe it can, if misused or abused, it can leave you feeling shameful as a believer. So definitely want to discuss that a little bit more too. So.
Yeah, so what's your history with anxiety?
So history with anxieties, I remember going back as a child, I remember feeling nervous about new situations, new events, new things. So if we were trying something new, I remember the first day we actually volunteered at a petting zoo, which was a lot of fun. First day I had a lot of nerves. And it was funny, it affected my stomach. That's the best way I could put it. I would start to get stomach aches. And, that was the way I guess my nerves kind of came out to the surface, was through stomach pains. So I'd always complain to my mom. We would be in the car. I would complain to my mom about having a stomach ache. And then fast forward, I got older, and I never would have labeled myself as an anxious person at all. And I guess I was just fooling myself, because I got into my 20s, and I guess I gave off this persona that I just wanted to kind of go with the flow. And now, Kira, I'm sure you can laugh, because would you say in my 20s and early 30s I was a go with the flow kind of guy?
No, that was a fake it till you make it.
So then we hit this crazy year in our life where God used this moment and this year to bring out all the stuff that I was hiding for so long.
Yeah, so my dad got unexpectedly sick, and we found out that he wasn't going to make it. And so that was a very stressful 3 weeks. And through the process of going to the hospital, having to go into the ICU, Callie had just been born, there was also drama with our church going on. Everything was just out of control. And even just planning his funeral service, all of it was so much. and it kind of caused it kind of caused you to have like anxiety attacks. Like that was like it was like that's when it all came to a head. It was like the combination of these really stressful events really made it kind of just like out of your control, right?
Exactly. And I remember with, your dad's health issues, I wanted to be the superhero for you. And I guess God had other plans for sure. So I wanted to come in, take care of you. And I don't know if I'm sure you remember, I was in the waiting room. Only so many people could go back there to see your dad in ICU. But I was in the waiting room and I was a shell of myself. I was having the sweats. And of course, the anxiety came through and stomach pain. So I was complaining about how bad my stomach hurt. And I was in the bathroom every 2 seconds. And I was a shell. I mean, they might as well have stuck me in the hospital at that point because I was a shell of myself.
Yeah,
And
I remember driving to the viewing and I had to like pull over halfway down to let you go to the bathroom.
I was gonna crap my pants probably. I mean,
you were like, and you were, it was making you even more stressed because you're like, well, I'm trying to be here for you, but then I'm having like, you're having to look out for me during this really crazy time, and it was what it was. Like we just somehow dealt with it, but it was a lot.
Yeah, so it opened my eyes that this was anxiety coming to the surface, and it was a debilitating form of anxiety that was coming through the form of a panic attack. And so it would start with uncontrollable sweats, then it would hurt my stomach, and from there it just left me just basically non-functioning.
Yeah, and once we like in our later days or in our later like the last couple of years, I feel like we've really like unpacked a lot of your like life and just like different things you experience. And I feel like too like a lot of time if a child experiences a home that's not like peaceful or there's just upheaval in the house. I feel like that's kind of what like starts the like that's where you kind of learn to have those feelings of like things are out of control. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, am I gonna be okay? Am I safe? Like, I feel like it can start at a young age through a traumatic event, and then it just if you don't learn like different coping mechanisms when you're younger, then I feel like it just continues to spiral, and then it gets to a point where it's like, wow, I can't even manage this anymore.
Yeah, and that was the hard part is I didn't know where to turn or what to, usually I turn to you, Kira, and for support, but in this journey you were going through your own chaos. And so I didn't know what to do. So honestly, I just turned to drinking. And so that was the only time when I felt like I was drinking where I felt like my nerves would calm down. And so, but then I learned very quickly that was going to send me down a dark hole because all I couldn't wait for was to get home so I could just start drinking. And it temporarily seemed to cure things. Then my sleeping got worse from all the drinking. It sent me down just even a darker spiral.
Yeah, it wasn't like a real fix for the problem at hand.
Very temporary fix.
So then in 2016, we were like, okay, this is out of our control. Like it was affecting your like daily ability to function, and you weren't living a happy, healthy lifestyle. So we're like, all right, we need to figure this out. So then what were some things that you started to do to kind of work through the anxiety?
So let me first say that how I always described it was this dark cloud that would follow me. And I remember we would have talks and you were trying to help me figure out how to, get through this. And I kept telling you, no matter what I do, I feel like this dark cloud just keeps following me. And it almost felt like it was out of my control. So my factory set was, okay, well, let me read, let me pray, let me do all the so-called right things. So I'd read my Bible, I'd start to pray, I was asking God, basically, I was just mad at God. I was like, God, why? Why did you put us in the most chaotic season of life? Why did you take the life that I had known and turn it upside down and destroy it? And so I just started sifting through that process. And I can tell you, it was like weeks on end where it felt like nothing changed. Absolutely nothing changed. And so that was hard because like anything in life, like let's say you start a new workout regimen, in a couple weeks you want to start seeing some progress, and it's very demoralizing if you're not seeing that. So honestly, it was a trusting the process, even though you didn't necessarily see the fruits. So the first step I started doing was I seeked out a counselor, and you were very supportive of that, Kira, which was great because all growing up, I guess the idea or the thought of seeing a counselor was that you didn't know how to handle your crap, or
Or
you've
you were
reached,
ashamed, like you just don't
yeah,
trust God enough, you're not spiritual enough, like why do you need some, but it's like there are certain things that you experience in life that like a trained professional can really just be such a value. And like God gave counselors the gift of being able to listen to people and talk to people and teach them different ways to think and act and like that. So it's like it's kind of smack in the face to be like, oh, God created people with these gifts, like let's not even use it. Like no, like there's people out there because we live in such a broken world, and unfortunately as humans we experience a lot of traumatic events that I don't think we were ever intended to experience, but we do. So then I'm like, okay, then God gives us these people to help us work through it and use him and use his strength and his power and his healing. But I think like so like people experience certain levels of trauma, and it's like you have to work through it and unpack it and process it and really figure out how you can like function with the trauma that you experience.
exactly. And I don't know if it's more of a male or female thing, for a guy to feel like he can't conquer it on his own. I just felt there's a certain level of humility I had to hit, and I just had to let go of it and trust that it was the right thing to do. And very quickly, just from my first session on, I already knew this is something I need. And just as far back as they were willing to go into my past, and they suggested a book that I read called Hind's Feet in High Places, one of the most amazing books I've ever read in my whole life. And just all the advice that they gave, um, I believe when you're going to counseling, you have to do your part. And I was willing to do. I was so broken. I was willing to do anything other than going back to alcohol because that wasn't working. And so I listened, and so I read books. I did everything they wanted to do, and boy, it just brought up stuff I didn't even realize needed to come out. It brought up stuff I didn't even realize existed.
Well, and
So it was
it's
incredible.
crazy too, like how just talking about something that you've experienced brings you so much healing. So it's not
Yeah,
even that I need to give you advice or the counselor needs you to give you advice. It's like just talking about something, and it's hard and it's painful because like who likes to remember things that have, really hurt them or wounded them? Nobody wants to do that. But if you just keep it inside and you never talk about it, get it out there, like process it, like it affects you and you don't even realize. Like my belief about anxiety, and I'm gonna tread lightly on this because I don't have a lot of experience with anxiety, so I don't want to sound like, "Oh, well, you don't even know because you don't deal with it." But the times that I have had anxious moments, it's because there's something that's going on in my life that's causing me pain or trouble, and I'm not dealing with it. I'm holding it inside. I'm not. It's like festering underneath the surface, and it affects you. You don't realize you're like, oh, I can function with this, but it's like, no, it's in there, and it affects you whether you realize or not.
agreed. And there's a certain level of like talking. You want to kind of keep yourself distracted to some degree, but talking about things, and seeking that help can just help you cope with it. I guess help you figure things out. And where a counselor comes in is they help you connect dots you didn't even know existed, because you're in such a micro level of the trauma and the problem that you need somebody that has an outside view, an outside lens to see it properly.
Yeah, and I think too, the counselor, most of their job is to listen, but I think also they do give you little tidbits about, hey, I think you might need to have a conversation with this person, or I think you need to take this action step, like you need to get rid of this item, or they do. I feel like they listen mostly and they help you process and help you get things off your chest, but then also they will give you some wise action steps to help you further heal the trauma or dysfunction that you've experienced.
Yeah, so that was like a 5 out of 5 stars idea and thing that worked for me so well. Well, then I was like, all right, we're starting to improve, but I'm still getting these stomach aches. I'm still having these issues. So I was like, I got to go see some doctors. And so I went to a bunch of different specialists, doctors, and everybody's like, well, you're fine. We don't know where that's coming from. Let's run all these tests and check and see if there's anything wrong. And all the tests came back fine. They said the only thing is you have high blood pressure. And the doctor looks at me like, are you under any like stress right now? And I'm like, oh, if you only knew the stress of, losing a father-in-law, having a baby, losing a church family you knew for a while, all this in like a matter of like a week. And yeah, I'm under a little bit of stress, doc. And so they said, all right, well, we want you to monitor that. So then I went to this like little Walgreens, what are those called? Like a little minute clinic place. And I don't know if I was there for like a flu shot or I can't remember. And so she hooks me up to the blood pressure and she's like, basically, she's like, good Lord, your blood pressure. And I said, yeah, I'm monitoring it. I know it's high. And she's like, well, I don't know if I should suggest this, but do you like pray or meditate or anything? And I said, well, yeah, kinda. But I said, I'm also kind of working through some stuff right now. So I said, to be honest, I said, I probably need to kind of get back to that. And so one of the things I started implementing was basically setting up like a little prayer closet, like just spending a little quiet time, I guess you could say, with God. And for me, I always grew up reading the Bible. So I was a big, it was easy for me to pick up the Bible and read, but I was never good at just sitting with God. And honestly, I don't think I really wanted to sit with God in this season because I was mad. I was mad that he allowed this all to happen. So I finally had to get over that and I, talk with him about what I was angry about. So I had to kind of work through that. And that was another thing in my journey that helped things out. And so I'm glad. It's so funny now in hindsight, realizing, yeah, the doctors didn't see anything because there was nothing there. This anxiety is kind of like a hidden killer that gives you these symptoms and gives you these things that it's very real. But then you go to the medical field and sometimes they just can't pick up on it. And so it leaves you questioning whether you're just a crazy person or not. And in all reality, no, you are not crazy. You are feeling these things and this anxiety is coming out in different lights. But it's hard for the medical field to pick up on it. It's a wild anomaly.
Yeah, it's like a check engine light on a car. It's like I feel like God gives us these little feelings of anxiety to be like, hey, something's off with your emotional or mental or spiritual state. So like, before we go, medication is a hot topic and whatever. I don't think we're going to get into too much of that today, but I do think, before you jump to that, it's like, well, let's just do like a little check here. Like, how are my relationships? Is there a conversation I need to have? How are my eating habits? Am I drinking too much coffee, drinking too much alcohol? Like all these things, can contribute to anxiety. So it's like, you kind of want to do like a little check if you can on all the natural ways to help and spiritual too. Am I praying? Am I meditating? Am I exercising? Oh my gosh, I feel so much better after I exercise. Brings my anxiety levels down. So it's like kind of like go that route too before, you need to jump to something else. So maybe be a little bit of a stronger fix. But I do think it's a good like reminder just to like check in on your emotional and your mental and your physical well-being.
Yeah, you spoke that so well, and it's so true. And I honestly kind of say how seasons of panic attacks and anxiety, it's so closely related to construction. In my field, if I want to make your kitchen look amazing, I have to demo it, I have to destroy it, I have to take it back down to the studs, and then I'll build it back up into something that's amazing and it looks very beautiful. But you missed that time that it took to get down to the studs. And I feel like that's what God was doing in my life. He had to rock my world upside down, expose all these issues that I didn't even know. There was stuff hiding there that I didn't even know was there. There was damage that was done. There were things I was hiding. And the funny part is then it exposed who I really was. And what I was is I was somebody that didn't handle stress well. I never have up to this point. I then chose coping mechanisms such as alcohol to try to cope. So I was very dependent on coping mechanisms when the whole time God's like, I just go to me, come to me. I got you. And it also revealed the true identity of my faith with him is that there wasn't a firm foundation with him. It was a very, well, hey God, I'll trust you as long as you have my back and you do things the way I want you to do them. And then the second things didn't go the way I wanted, it was like, all right, God, thanks for nothing. I'm off. And I spent that season just away from him. So it really showed my true character in my true colors. So going back to the check engine light, it was the doctors and everybody else couldn't see anything. But if I was honest with myself, and the counselor did a great job being honest with me, is that my foundation with God didn't exist. I was hiding my worries and my stresses from a young age, and I had to dig that all out. And once I was willing to put into work, put into time, and do things that I wasn't good at, such as praying and spending alone time with God, then the dark cloud started fading away.
Yeah, no, that's well put. So in terms of a partner supporting someone who's struggling with severe anxiety, what are some things that I did well or didn't do well, or I don't know, I can talk about that if you want, or do you have things to say about that?
I'll bring up like a point. I would love for you to kind of go into what it felt like for you, but I would say one of the things you did is you listened. So important. Is there? I look back and I'm like, if I were you, I would have ran for I don't know, I would have ran anywhere. I would have gone any spot. I would just jumped out of the car and been done, because I remember just constantly berating you with story after issue after story after issue again, and you did a great job of just putting your opinions aside and just hearing me out.
Yeah, I think that's God's grace too, because I mean, I do naturally have a very laid back personality. So I think like God purposely put our personalities together because we can balance each other out in that way. But I think also too, he gives you grace for situations that he brings you through, and the patience to handle it. But yeah, I can remember feeling like, I think I brought up the counselor because I was like, this is beyond my pay grade, right? Like I can be a good partner and I can do my best. Like I did things that I could do, like help you map like a bathroom route to, when you were worried about that going to work, and listening to you and I mean, just like being a shoulder to cry on, like all the things. But at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know how to fix this problem because this is not something that I am experienced in, nor am I trained in dealing with panic attacks and all of this stuff. So I think encouraging your partner to see a counselor is good, like letting them know, like, this is good for you. This is not shameful. This is not embarrassing. Like, I want this for you. Like, not bringing up the financial burden of a counselor, just like being supportive and working with your partner to find a solution that is going to help.
And I think you did a great job in the fact that I was concerned if I was like, okay, what is she going to think of me if I'm supposed to be, an important, okay, I'm your partner in this, and then I have to go see a counselor. My thought was like, oh, well, that just tells you I'm failing and I'm not doing a good job. And you did it. That was what was going through in my head, and you did a great job just counterbalancing those attacks by saying, no, this is what you need. This is going to make you a better person than you were, and being very affirming.
Yeah, because like selfishly, like you want your partner optimized at 100%, right? Because like if they're their best selves, then they're going to be their best selves for you. So it's like, don't we want to see our partners functioning at a high capacity so that in return we get the benefits?
Then I want you to there was this one piece of advice that you shared which was life-changing to me, that sure. You probably remember. You said, what's the worst that's gonna happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like even because you were having so much anxiety about just even like going to the bathroom in your pants on the way to work, and I'm like, hun, worst case, you poop your pants, you turn around, you drive home, you take a shower, you change your clothes, and then you go to work and you carry on with your day. And I think we even like said you could pack an extra pair of clothes. Like, I think sometimes taking yourself to the worst. Now, I don't know, there might be situations where it's like not in your best interest to maybe think of the worst case scenario. I think that could maybe cause more anxiety. Like,
this isn't a one size fits all.
Yeah, right? This was like for this specific, but for that time it was helpful for you. I would think like, as now that I'm a parent, I'm like, there are some situations that I do not want to think of the worst case scenario because it's just going to terrify me, and in which case the distraction and the deflection method is best for that. I'm sure a counselor would say, I don't know, I'm not a professional, but I'm sure the counselor would say, yeah, no, we're not going to go to worst case scenario. We're going to re-divert our thought pattern on that one. Yeah. But at that time it was helpful because there was not to sound like offensive, but like some of the things were like smaller worries, like, and we do this with our kids because like the things that they worry about are not like life and death stuff right now. So we're like, okay, well, let's think about the worst case scenario and how would we handle that? And it kind of eased the burden of like the unknown. They were like, oh, okay. So they had a plan, right? If this happens, this is what we're going to do and it's going to be okay. So it kind of like eased a little bit of anxiety there.
Well, and let's call it what it was. Like losing your dad and the way we lost him, that was the worst case scenario. And so a lot of the things that I was stressed and was causing my panic attacks and anxiety was things that, when you look down to it, you're like, I'm alive and you're alive. And so we have a lot of blessings. So I was missing a lot of blessings that were right there in front of my face because we literally experienced one of the worst things you could have, which is losing somebody you love. And there was also plenty of other horrible traumas out there too. But I mean, that's why it's all about having a healthy perspective, which what I started, a counselor started helping me shift my perspective on things for sure.
Yeah, and I think having the foundation of faith too, I'll go back to that because it's like, no matter how hard or how sad or how bad things get down here, we know that we can look forward to eternity where we won't be in pain anymore. Everything will be restored. We'll have joy and, we'll get to see those people that we miss again. So I think that kind of definitely brings a certain level of peace. And I was also thinking like anxiety in kids with Callie, like she's shown a little bit of anxiety with us leaving her places. And, it's easy when we're not being, I think patience is such a big key when it comes to people that are struggling with anxiety, because it's like, if you try and just be like, oh, get over it or like hurry them through it, it's not helpful. It just heightens. It makes it worse, honestly.
I remember telling you that. I was like, oh, if I could just hurry through this, you'd be answering all my prayers.
When people say stop worrying, it's like,
do you think I'm that?
Do you think I'm choosing to have this panic attack? Like, obviously, I would not be having this panic attack if it was.
You're like, what sounds really good today is I'm going to do some French toast, maybe a little side of eggs, and a side of a panic attack. I'm just going to choose to have that.
Yeah.
Today.
So if you want something that's not helpful, saying "don't worry" to someone who's struggling with anxiety is not helpful. But anyway, with that being said, when it comes to kids and kind of helping them through it, we give her the space to express all the things that she's worried about. We speak truth over the lies, because a lot of things that she's saying, like, you're not going to come pick me up. Yes, we will pick you up. If mommy doesn't pick you up, we have daddy, we have mama. We will always have someone pick you up. We start like reassuring her. And then we take the time. We don't rush her. And then when we feel like it's been enough time where we've really let her express her feelings, given her the assurance, then we give her that nudge and we go and we rip the Band-Aid off. And so far, most of the time, she works through it. She's upset at first and she gets it out. We're like, cry, get it all out, get your feelings out. And then she ends up having a great time and enjoying whatever activity like we're sending her off to. But I think the allowing kids and adults to have their feelings and not rush them through that process is super important, and allowing them to
feel. And how
feel.
many times we do this out of love, but how many times do we fix people in their situations too fast? Like, I'm guilty of this for sure, but somebody will like share, oh, this is hard, or this, this season of my life, or this job, or whatever. I'm going through a really hard time. We're like, instead of just being like, man, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, what's, asking further questions so they can have a chance to unload, being like, what about your job's causing stress? Or what about, instead of doing that, we're always like, well, oh, what I did is I ended up doing this. And it's like, we go into the self-help mode, and it's so I remember people did that to me in my season. I remember I checked the heck out. I was like, I'm done. I can't, because all I'm looking for is just somebody that's willing to listen. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like, and I don't want to carry myself.
You want validation and to know you're not crazy, right? It's okay. Like, you're allowed to have these feelings are okay.
Acknowledge I was a little crazy. I felt crazy for a while for sure. And
it helps you feel better.
But it was kind of like Job in the Bible. It's kind of like he just needed his buddies. Sometimes you just need your bros. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What's it for the women? The gals? You say sometimes you just need the gals or gal pals?
Ladies. Yeah, so that's it. Are we doing an unpopular opinion about anxiety?
Let's do it. So our unpopular opinion segment about anxiety, this should go over very well. Would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll start. And I'm not trying to offend anybody, but
Yeah,
this
you already
isn't,
know it's
this
going to be
is,
good when you have to start with that.
it is unpopular opinion. So that means that you don't have to agree with me. And you know what? That's the beauty of the good old USA is you can disagree with me, but you don't have to hate me. And same with me. I can disagree with you. And guess what? We can still love each other. It's all good. Okay. Anyway, my unpopular opinion is that people turn to anxiety medications too quickly. And what I mean by that is, like I said before with the check engine light, I think if you're having anxious feelings, I believe that you should do all you can, like all that's in your power to handle and deal with the anxious feelings with natural methods such as exercise, diet, coffee, essential oils. Hey, I'll even throw in a little CBD pill, like anything that is a natural remedy for anxious feelings. I think, and again, I really think that digging into like, is there anything that is like that affected me in the past that I'm not dealing? Is there a conversation I need to have? Is there something that I just, you know what, I need to sit in the corner with God and say, God, this has been bothering me for a while. I don't want it to bother me anymore. This is yours now. Like giving him your burdens, like, and choosing to not only give him your burdens, but then leaving it there, not taking it back, not continuing to fester on a situation or overthink about something that happened that is no longer serving you well. So I think there is a time and place for medication. I am not one of those Christians that's like, you should never be on medication, da da da. No, there is a time and place. I think if you've done everything, I believe in, chemical imbalances and some certain things that go on in the brain that, again, smart people know about. I don't know about. Not a professional, but I do think that there's a time and place. So I'm not ever saying like never be on medication, but I do think as a culture we are quick to jump to
Well,
medication as the fix all, and we haven't done everything in our power to fix it ourselves first.
and the reality is, it's not so much just on the person with the anxiety, it's on the doctors are very quick to prescribe nowadays. In my short time of going to the specialist, I think I had 3 to 4 different prescriptions that were filled out for me. And honestly, if that's what needs to kickstart rewiring my brain correctly, that's where I'm a proponent of it. But the issue is the reality is I had damaging coping mechanisms such as drinking. I also was lacking a ton of rest and sleep. I was, before I was seeing the counselor, I was just holding everything in and burying it. So I had pretty rough coping mechanisms that were setting me up for failure. So the thing I'm thankful for is not so much that I didn't get on the medicine, is the fact that I was willing to comb through my life and comb through things. And thank God for a counselor. I was able to unpack a lot of things that were there. And once I started doing that, that's when the cloud started slowly dissipating. Now, at the same time, let's be honest, is it's easy to get on medication. It's a little bit quicker of a fix. My story is about 3 years long of a lot of suffering. And so for 3 years, I feel like I was like, oh, I have this dark cloud following me. And then I would start to journal, and then I remember just like one day just telling you like, here, the cloud's like gone, and I don't
Yeah,
know
and I think if you're
where it
willing to
went.
put in the work and take the longer, harder journey, like God will honor that, and you'll find more peace in life. I think God blesses that the sacrifice and the work that we do when it comes to trying to make ourselves happy, healthy, whole beings as well. What's your unpopular opinion?
So my unpopular opinion is that you can't out Christian anxiety. And let me elaborate. What I mean by that is it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take work beyond just reading and praying. That's going to help you overcome things. And so for me, that looked through journaling, reading, not only reading the Bible, but reading other resources and books that are out there, understanding how the brain works, understanding that my existing coping mechanism was failing me, and to set up a new coping mechanism that was going to help me succeed. It was not listening to the lies that were going on in my head, but replacing that with the truth. There were so many different factors that I had to unpack. I had to unpack things from my childhood, had to unpack things that were happening to me while I was in my 20s that went into starting to overcome And here's the other thing is I don't want to sit there and say overcome anxiety. There's still like certain levels of anxieties are perfectly fine and understandable. If okay, I'm about to do a cliff dive and you feel nervous and a little stressed about it, that's your God-given brain telling you, hey, there's certain dangers that could lie ahead of you. So I don't want to sit there. I hate when people, I'm healed of anxiety and stuff. And it's like, well, like it's having a normal, healthy level of anxiety is what I mean. Like an anxiety that keeps you from doing anything too dumb or too crazy or out of the norm. And so I wouldn't even say, but just having a healthy level again. So to me, it's going to take a ton of work, and that goes beyond just reading and praying. That you have to basically pull up your bootstraps and clock in and get ready to go and persevere through it. A lot of hours with counselors, a lot of being honest with yourself and with others.
Yep. That is a wrap for season 2, episode 1, I guess we should say.
Yeah. Season 2, it's going to be bigger, better, and more. And we're still in our closet, though.
Yeah, I don't know about that's probably going to be the same as season 1, but
basically
here we
you're
are.
Still sniffing. What are you sniffing now? Lavender?
No. Do you even know me?
It's like this Vicks Vapo Rub
Well,
thing, but you stick it up your nose.
I have 2 scents. The Vicks is tried and true, but when I'm feeling more holistic and natural, eucalyptus is my go-to smell.
Eucalyptus. Wow. Shame. If you got the lavender, you'd fall right asleep, right?
Yeah, no, I'm already tired. I don't need to fall asleep even more.
Yep. So we're still in the closet season 2. Some things never change, right?
Yep. It's where we get the best audio and where we can do our best to shut out the noise of the kids. You may hear a little bit in the background today. That's because it's summer, and also why we had to take 4 weeks off, because kids are home. We're traveling, all the summer things, camps, busyness, but we are doing our best to get back on here. So hopefully we can bring you a couple more episodes before this baby pops out.
Yep. Wish us luck for that. And thanks for listening to this podcast.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Living Life with the Rogers with Cameron and Kira.
You can find us over on Instagram at Kira Nicole Photography. We post a lot on there and are always checking messages and comments. And if you want to hear future episodes, make sure you subscribe or follow. Catch you guys next time.